This video is a quick reference on how to use Photoshop to do our little project that we're going to do. Now, we're not going to be professed to be experts in Photoshop by the end of this. All we're going to try to do today is just show you the basic tools. That would be the typing tool, the paint tools, and the selection tools so that you could do whatever you need to do to get this project done. All right, first thing you want to recognize is that the picture that you're looking at here is the size of your poster. Now, if you look down in the bottom window here, it is 16.7% of its view. So this is really a much bigger picture than we're seeing, but a much bigger picture will not fit. I'm going to suggest that you maybe use, let's say, about 25 to 30%. I'll use 30% here. And what we'll see here is that this picture is slightly bigger than the window, so we can move it up and down if we need to add things in. But this is my paper layout. It's going to give me a good view. Now, don't worry if it looks pretty tiny on the screen, because that's what's going to happen. Now, a few other things we should do. Recognize over here in your layers window, very important section over here. This is called your layers window. On your layers window, you never really want to work on the background. So the first thing I would encourage you to do is to create a new layer using this button that you see down here. So if I click on here, I'll make a new layer. On this particular layer, what I will do is I'm going to show you how you can use this rectangle tool. For example, let's say I wanted to draw a rectangle. What I could do is simply just draw the rectangle with this. Now, if I use the moving tool, I could then turn on this tool here, the moving tool, and I can move this. Whoops, sorry, I can't move it yet because I didn't put anything in there. But what I can do is I can do whatever I want to this particular thing once something is done. So I could cut something out that's in the shape, or I could put stuff in there that's in the shape. So this tool right here, if you click down, is another important tool to use. If I click and hold it down, it originally appeared as this when you're looking at it. So if I click and hold it down, I can turn it onto a paint bucket. And if you see here, I've already set up a blue color. I can choose any color I want. For example, shades of green. I can pick green. If I hit OK, what I can do is I just take the paint bucket and I fill it in, and now I have a green rectangle. Now, because it's on its own layer, you can see a little mini version of the green here possibly. I don't know if you can see it in the video. What I could do is I could turn on my moving tool at this point, and I can move my green rectangle wherever I want. Okay, so this is basically a way if you want to just simply draw some shapes. Now, there are a couple of things I can do to this. For example, if I don't want the blinking lines, there's a couple things I could do. I could go to select, and I choose the option to deselect it. But if you also notice, a hotkey would be Control and D, which would be quicker than doing it this way if you learn your shortcuts. So now you see that it's not blinking, and now I have this layer. So a couple things that you might want to recognize about this is that I could actually do effects to this if I wanted to by simply double clicking on the layer that it's found on, and it'll give me some options of things I can do. Of particular interest, most people like to put on two effects. If I move this window over here, number one is some people like to put drop shadows on. So if I click on the word, notice I clicked on the word and not the checkbox, because the word is actually telling me what I'm supposed to do. You can kind of see a little black shadow that's formed over here. And I can move stuff around. For example, if I give it a bigger distance and spread or size, I can make the shadow bigger. So we see there's a bigger shadow underneath. And it's all to your personal liking. So let's say I wanted a shadow. The other thing that people like to put on things are strokes. And a stroke is basically a brush stroke to go around the outside. So if I click on that, you will see it put a little sharp black line around the outside. Now, I can put whatever color stroke I want. Again, notice I clicked on the word. So whatever I want to do here, if I click on black, I can change the size, make it a little bit of a fatter line if I want to. And I could also change the color. So for example, let's say I wanted this hideous red stroke to go with the green. That would look pretty terrible, I would think. But let's say I did it anyway. We can clearly see that there's a red stroke around it. So there's an outline, or what appears to be a frame. Now, a neat little technique about this is that if I do this, in my poster, if I wanted to create little rectangles, you saw on my sample poster that I created little frames, and this is how I did the frames. I actually made a white rectangle. So if I switch my colors here and choose a white paint bucket, white's correct, I could just fill in this, and now I actually have a frame, and that's how I got all my stuff that I was able to type in here. So I can separate these things if I wanted to. Now, obviously, this box is a little bit too small for what we're doing, but that's not my concern here. I don't really care about that. So later on, you can make a bigger box, and now, for example, let's say I wanted to make more of these boxes, and I did choose the right size. If I go over here to the layers window and I click the layer and drag it down to where you made the new layer originally, I can copy it. So now if I use the move tool, now I have multiple rectangles. So really quickly I can get the framework of this set up. So I could just put a bunch of these in. Now my next step is that if I wanted to do typing. So right now I've shown you how you could create a basic shape if you wanted to, how you use the moving tool to move things around. Notice, by the way, as I click on the circle, or this square I mean, it's not moving. That's because I'm not on that layer. I'm actually on the layer that contains this square. So I'm actually not moving the square itself. I'm moving the whole layer when I use the move tool. So that's an important detail to keep in mind. So if I want to actually move this square right here, I need to switch back to the layer that contained that square. And now I can move that without moving the other. Now the other thing you'll notice is that this layer is below the other one, and if for any reason I wanted this layer on top of the other one, again, the layers windows is where you do this. According to the stacking of my paper here, layer 1 copy is above layer 1, so I would just simply click, drag, move, let go of it, and we see that this layer is now on top of the other layer. So I can adjust layers however I want and stack up the papers in any particular order, and that's all you will need to do. Now, the final thing that I wanted to show you how to do is how to put in typing. So that's actually a pretty easy skill, but it has some little tricks to it when you use it. So what we do is we turn on the typing tool. You just go randomly pretty much anywhere you want. Now I'm going to choose my color before I type. Looks like I accidentally clicked somewhere. Okay, now I'm back. Okay, I'm going to use, for example, black. Black's always a good color to work with when typing because people can read it better. If I click anywhere on the screen, we'll see a little cursor shows up. It's pretty tiny, so I can change the size here to whatever size I would like. For example, if I choose a 60. Now, I don't have to only choose these. I could actually choose any size font I want by simply typing it in. So if I wanted 84, and that wasn't on the choice, I could just hit 84, and it makes 84 for me. Now, the next thing I do is I just type in, so I will call this my project. And once I have that set, I just turn on the moving tool. I move it wherever I want. If you notice, I did not draw a text box. Text boxes actually tend to be problems with this because you kind of are limited in your space. So I just click on here randomly, let the text do whatever it is it's going to do, and then make adjustments later. So the final thing that I want to show you here is if I wanted to edit the text up, you got to be very careful, but you have to turn on the typing tool. Make sure that you click in that sentence to get your cursor on there, because if you miss, it will actually make a new text layer. Notice over here it says the layer called My Project where I type these words. Now I can carefully work on here. For example, if I wanted to change my font, I could just simply choose over here. I like this font, Snap, so let's see if they have it. So I'll choose that. I can move it later on, okay, but I'll use the moving tool. I'll move it now, I guess. And I'll turn on the typing tool again. Again, carefully making sure I get into this layer. And then I could do anything else I want. For example, this tool here will bend things. So I could create an arc if I would like. And you see here that's pretty arced. I don't really want that arced. But I could adjust it to whatever size I want. And then I hit OK. A couple other things I could do. I could change up other commands here. Most of these you won't want to use. But this one here is one you will probably want to use because this is how you get your subscripts for when you're writing a chemical formula. So I'll show you that one in the next on the next layer that I create. All right, but right now I'm good. So the final step I'm going to do, so I'm going to go back over here to where it says My Project. I'm going to double click and add a little effect to it. So I'm going to put my drop shadow in again. Now, black on black, you can't see that shadow probably pretty well. But if I put the stroke on, and I use a color that'll make it pop. For example, maybe I glow it in yellow. I'll put that yellow edge on it. Okay, it's not quite big enough, so I'm going to spread that out a little bit so I get a little bit of a sharper yellow there. And then maybe I try a drop shadow again with a bigger size maybe. We see that now I actually have basically a yellow pattern around the outside with the shadow, and it kind of looks pretty nice. So I think that I'm happy with what I've done there. Now, the next thing I would do is if I want to do some more typing, the next step that I would do is I need to turn the typing tool on again. But watch what happens in the layers window when I do this. If I click anywhere else, it creates a new text layer, and that's so important. If you clicked in this text, it would continue to work on that text layer. So I'm going to change a few things up. I'll make a smaller font. For example, I'll go with Tahoma here. If I want to write sentences, I probably want to write a little bit of a clearer font than that last one. So maybe I'll go with an 18 font. And I would say, let's say I'm writing a formula, and I wanted to use CuCl2, copper 2 chloride. Okay, this 2 here, if I wanted to make it look like a proper formula, it doesn't really look correct right now. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go up here to this option, and this is where I found that choice to actually put a subscript in. You could also put superscripts or what you think of as exponents in there too if you want. And you could change other things too if you wanted to. But we see here now it looks a little bit more like a formula. So if I click, now I can move this wherever I want. For example, if I wanted it here for whatever reason, I could place that there. And what you see is if I wanted to use this formula again, I could do one of two things. I could copy it, or I could just physically copy the layer again. And now you can't see it, but it's here. Now I have two versions of this. So what you can do is you can really repeat a lot of things very quickly in Photoshop if you needed to. Now if you wanted to go back and fix anything, for example, I said, you know what, I don't like black, I want to use a different color. I could turn on the typing tool again. Now again, the key is you got to use the proper tool. I got to find the layer that this is on. Okay, so I'm actually on the wrong layer there. You notice it switched the layers for me. And let's say that I wanted to do this in blue instead. Alright, so now I have a blue. Oops, I changed it to blue, but I never told it I wanted it to be blue. So let me re-highlight this. And up here on the top is probably easier. I'll just click here, and that's where I'll choose my blue from. So we'll see that it automatically turns the text blue, and I don't have to reapply anything. So what we have here now is a blue CUCL2. All right, now finally, if I wanted to do something a little different, you'll notice on my poster I created like a kind of a little oval that this was in, and that was actually done very easily too. What I want to do is I want to make a new layer to put this drawing on. Now you do have, when you're not using typing tool, you do have to specify a new layer. So I put on my new layer, and I'm going to use the oval tool here, or elliptical marquee tool actually, to make the oval. I'm going to draw an oval roughly how I want, and let's say I wanted this to be yellow. So I'm going to click on yellow, hit OK. It's pretty ugly, hit yellow, but it'll do the job. And I turn on my paint bucket tool, and I pour my yellow in here. You'll notice that my my words vanished, but that's not really vanished. I just have them on a different layer. If you notice, it's on the underneath layer. So if I go back to this layer and move it up, now it's on top where it should be. Whoops, I don't want to do that. All right, now my final thing is I'm going to get rid of these dotted lines by selecting and deselecting, or Control D. And now you might say, okay, well, how can I actually move both these together? Because once I turn on the moving tool, now I either have to move both at this, or one and then move the other one over, or here's a little simple technique that you can do too if you want to remember. Now, by the way, if you want to move things gently, I'm moving them with the arrow key right now on the keyboard. It's easier than the mouse sometimes. But let's say I wanted to merge these two layers together. There is a trick to do this. If I were to right-click on the layer here, there is an option. Sorry, it's not here. I don't see it. At least it might be below. So I'm going to go to the layer option. At layer, if you go to merge down, it will merge those two layers. But now I'm not going to be able to type on that layer anymore. But now what I've done is I've actually created an icon. And again, if I wanted to make a couple of these, I just simply drag, release, and I've copied it. And now I have a combined shape here that I could use wherever I want. Now the final step I'm going to show you, and then we'll be done today, is if I wanted to make this thing spin a little bit. Maybe I don't like the orientation. If I go up to Edit, Transform, I will be able to rotate it, or do anything I want to it really, but I'm going to choose Rotate. Now see this line that's still around it? I need to get rid of that, and the only way to do that is by hitting the Enter key on your keyboard. So when you hit Enter, now you have a rotated shape. If I go to my other layer, now I'm going to merge these down, just because I want to merge it to the one below it. So I go to Layer, Merge. Whoops, sorry, I forgot to say then merge them down. You know what, I'm not going to bother with that. It's going to show you too much. It wasn't actually there, and I have to do a few steps. So, but I could actually rotate this layer if I wanted to by just simply going to Edit, Transform, and I could rotate it. I could actually do a whole bunch of things. For example, if I just rotate it 90 degrees, it just flips it this way. So this shape was, that's why I couldn't merge it. The shape was already merged together. I forgot I had done that earlier. So basically what we see here is a bunch of different little tricks and techniques that you could use when you're working in Photoshop. And if you have questions, please let me know, but try to refer to this if you remember seeing something here that you thought might be of use. All right, hopefully this helps out with your project. Good luck with it, and please make sure if you have problems in class, you certainly ask me as we're going. All right, have a good day.